Recent Israeli military operations pushed into Iranian territory, executing precision missile strikes that caused massive damage within Tehran's borders. Every capital city maintains a diplomatic safe zone, similar to New Delhi's Chanakapuri, a highly secured enclave where foreign ambassadors operate. These zones are governed by an international consensus, treating them as strictly off-limits during active wartime. During the bombardment of Tehran, a missile landed deep inside this VIP diplomatic quarter, striking in immediate proximity to the Pakistani embassy. The event triggered immediate panic among the diplomatic staff stationed inside. For surrounding non-combatant nations, this physical impact signaled a severe shift in the rules of engagement. It demonstrated that Israeli targeting parameters are willing to push past traditional diplomatic boundaries to secure operational objectives. Hitting a VIP quarter removes the traditional assumption of immunity. For peripheral nuclear powers, this proximity strike demands an immediate reevaluation of how they protect staff in high-risk foreign capitals. Islamabad's response was immediate. A state-linked think tank closely tied to the government issued an aggressive public warning directly targeting Israel. The official statement included a specific warning: Pakistan is no Qatar. This directly references Israel's previous bombing operations within the Qatari capital of Doha. While Qatar absorbed those strikes without kinetic retaliation, Pakistan drew a hard line. Their officials explicitly threatened to beat the hell out of Israel if any harm occurred to Pakistani diplomats anywhere in the world. Right now, Islamabad is projecting extreme political aggression. However, determining if this is a credible threat requires decoupling this rhetorical posturing from the hard reality of military logistics. Thousands of miles of hostile terrain separate Israeli and Pakistani territory, neutralizing the threat of symmetrical warfare and conventional ground invasions. Without land access, force protection requires long-range ballistics, but Pakistan's current missile arsenal lacks the range to strike Israel. We can observe Iran's recent massive missile barrages against Israel as a practical case study in the limitations of long-range strikes. Iran is geographically much closer to Israel and still failed to overwhelm Israeli defenses or halt their military operations. Pakistan faces a vastly steeper logistical hurdle from an even greater distance. The geographic reality isolates the conflict. Any Pakistani military response would rely entirely on unproven, extreme long-range capabilities, rendering their large standing army effectively useless in this specific theater. Moving from the grounds to the airspace, a severe technological mismatch defines the combat capabilities of their respective fighter fleets. Israel holds a distinct tactical advantage, operating a highly modernized fleet built around fifth-generation F-35 stealth fighters. Pakistan, conversely, relies heavily on older fourth-generation F-16 fighter jets for its primary air defense. This reliance creates a critical geopolitical vulnerability. Pakistan operates its F-16 fleet under strict United States end-user agreements. If a conflict initiates, Israel holds the diplomatic leverage to pressure Washington. The U.S. could invoke those agreements to immediately ground Pakistan's jets, stripping them of their air defense. Bypassing a grounded air force, Israel could execute deep penetration strikes into Pakistani territory, targeting high-value military assets and neutralizing their top-level command structure. Because Pakistan is locked into U.S.-controlled legacy airframes, its air force is structurally incapable of mounting a sustained defense against Israeli aerospace dominance. The Global Firepower Index tracks this shifting military balance. Over the past decade, Pakistan experienced a multi-year decline, dropping out of the top 10 to rank 14, trailing Brazil. Meanwhile, Israel executed a steady year-over-year climb upward through the ranks. If Israel secures its objectives through a ground invasion or regime change operation in Iran, that expansion of power could permanently secure its position in the global top 10. Internal economic constraints are actively eroding Pakistan's conventional deterrence. Their capability gap is widening, precisely as Israel's regional power reaches a new peak. The aggressive rhetoric coming out of Islamabad is not an isolated incident. We can look back to a highly volatile exchange in 2016 involving Pakistan's defense minister for context. Reading a fabricated news article claiming an imminent Israeli attack provoked the defense minister into publicly threatening Israel with a nuclear strike on social media. While the catalyst was fake news, the reaction was genuine. It exposed a dangerously high level of baseline paranoia operating within Pakistan's defense establishment. The incident proved that Islamabad's underlying fear regarding Israel's long-term strategic intentions is active and constantly near the surface. Pakistan's nuclear posturing frequently operates as a reactive defense mechanism, triggered by the perception of encirclement, rather than an actionable offensive military plan. Pakistani defense ministers currently operate under a specific threat model. They fear a deliberate, systematic strategy of strategic encirclement. Their projected timeline expects the first phase to begin around 2032. They anticipate Israel initiating aggressive diplomatic offensives aimed directly at dismantling Pakistan's missile program. The fear is that future Israeli leadership will prioritize isolating Pakistan on the global stage, using international pressure to neutralize its strategic assets. The projected second phase, running from 2035 to 2040, involves escalation. Diplomatic pressure shifts into low-intensity kinetic strikes, eventually targeting hard infrastructure. Pakistani officials have articulated the ultimate goal of this timeline as vassalization, a deliberate strategy to weaken Pakistan until it is reduced to a subordinate, fragmented state. They expect Israel to leverage its deep expanding defense partnerships with India to facilitate this eventual territorial fragmentation. Whether this 2040 timeline is an accurate forecast of Israeli foreign policy or a product of strategic paranoia, it remains the active doctrine currently dictating Islamabad's defense posture. Between the lack of shared land borders and the growing disparity in airframe generations, a conventional, symmetrical war remains geographically and technologically impossible. Pakistan is consumed by the task of managing severe internal domestic instability. Israel, by contrast, is executing a clear, uncompromising vision for regional security. Direct territorial conflict is being replaced by a state of persistent friction, defined by asymmetric posturing, diplomatic lawfare, and proxy deterrence. The impact in Tehran proves that physical distance no longer guarantees political immunity. It establishes a volatile, long-range rivalry that bypasses the traditional constraints of regional defense.